Shabbat Shalom. It is always an incredible experience when we have these Shabbatot that fall in the midst of holidays and you get to see who comes to visit, who comes home from college, as Anna and her sister Adina are here. And so we have a house full and very happy puppies who get to hang out with all of their siblings. And it is wonderful, Anna, to get to lead services with you. There were a number of months, many years ago, where we had a whole string of Shabbatot. And so when Anna is in town, it's wonderful for them to get to share the Bima with me. Here I stand on this Shabbat, and yesterday was Thanksgiving, a truly American holiday through and through. And one of the things that has become part of Thanksgiving in my house and in other places is doing a land acknowledgement. And if you're not sure what a land acknowledgement is, this is one from MIT. I don't have the one from Northeastern, but MIT's in Boston where Anna goes to school, so it's close enough, right? It's Cambridge, I know. MIT says this: MIT acknowledges indigenous people as traditional stewards of the land and the enduring relationship that exists between them and their traditional territories. The land on which we sit is traditionally unceded territory of the Wampanoag Nation. We acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced occupation of their territory. We honor and respect the many diverse indigenous people connected to this land in which we gather from this time immemorial. And as I shared those words from MIT, you might be saying, why? Why do we need to do that? Why do we even need to acknowledge? Why, Rabbi Birnholz, do you feel the need to stand in the Bima and say this on Shabbat? And there's a number of different reasons why, as we observe Thanksgiving, it is important for me to stand on this Bima and to do a land acknowledgement. One of the facts and one of the truths is that our Thanksgiving story that we tell of the pilgrims and the Indians, and they're all hunky-dory and sharing food, and the Indians are helping the pilgrims survive that winter in Plymouth. It is so full of falsehoods and myth. And even if there had been collaboration and cooperation, it was soon superseded by the worst of colonialism and supremacy. It didn't take 1 or 2 generations for the use of force and disease and false diplomacy to push native peoples from their lands. The people who came to this country, many of them seeking shelter themselves, did an amazing job, amazing in the worst sense of the word, of erasing the presence and culture, and if they didn't kill them outright, sent the native people who had been in those places into an exile that was meant to destroy body and spirit. It's one of the painful parts of the reality of American history that is what happened on the lands that we are on. And as I said, why do I say it on Shabbat? Because how can I be Jewish and not acknowledge how, as I tell that story of what happened to the American Indians in this country, not to admit and understand and have empathy, because how often has it happened to us? How many times have we been exiled? How many times have our people had to do forced marches, like the Cherokee Indians in their Trail of Tears? How many times did that happen to us? How many pogroms, like the attack on Wounded Knee, and in Kishinev, which is part of what brought my family to this country? How many banishments? I always say, you all know the poem, right? In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. But Linda, you probably didn't hear my second paragraph. Ferdinand and Isabella said that Spain shouldn't have a single Jew. And in fact, in this week's Torah portion, at the end of Genesis, there's a famine in the land. Remember Joseph, the whole prison dreams, rising up the ranks, 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. There's a famine in the land. and we end up going down to Egypt. But what happens as soon as there's a Pharaoh who didn't know Joseph, or a Pharaoh who wanted power and saw a minority he could exploit? What happens to us? We become enslaved with taskmasters and harsh labor. Fiddler on the Roof. How does Fiddler on the Roof end? With them being pushed out of the Pale of Settlement, out of Anatevka, having come to this land. Nazis, Romans, Muslim countries in the wake of the formation of Israel, it has happened so often to us. And think about where I am right now, in Vero Beach, Florida, in the United States of America. Isn't what brought us here to this place, this Golden Medina? Why do we call it the Golden Land? Because this is a place where there haven't been pogroms for the most part, where there have been chances and opportunity to stop being completely other and join in with the rest of our American siblings. But if you think about this Golden Medina where we came, my ancestors, some getting away from Cossacks, some from the Nazis, to come to this country and have the opportunities that I'm experiencing. But this Golden Medina, this Golden Land, is built on land of those who were here long before my ancestors, who had their land forcibly and brutally taken from them by others. And so I feel, if that's my story, how can I not have empathy? How can I not have understanding? How can I not realize what was done to the Native Americans that were in this place? It is not only important to acknowledge that loss, but also be an active in restoration of culture, of knowledge, of the sharing of history. And there's the MIT website, beautiful language. It's important to acknowledge the traditional territory is to recognize in longer history, reaching beyond colonization and the establishment of European colonies, as the significance for the indigenous people who lived here and to continue to live upon this territory, whose practices and spiritualities were tied to the land and continue to develop in the relationship to the land of other inhabitants. Point after point that says that it is vital and important. If we want to celebrate America, then we have to acknowledge both the good and the bad. We have to look at all of these different places of our history, different places of culture, understand where we are sitting. So on this Shabbat, even as we're talking about what's happening to our people in the Torah as they go down to Egypt, even as we celebrate Thanksgiving, remembering that point in American history, we also must do this act. I'm Michael Birnholz. I acknowledge the indigenous people as traditional stewards of the land and the enduring relationship that exists between them and their traditional territories. I was born in the land of the Natchez and the Choctaw and the Chickasaw, and I now live in this land of the Ayes and the Seminoles. I acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced occupation of their territory, and I honor and respect the many diverse indigenous people connected to this land in which we gather for this time memorial. I hope to learn from more of these people, past and present. I pledge to seek opportunities to learn from their relationship with the land, its seasons, and its produce. I look to discover the monuments destroyed and preserved that tell of their presence in this place. And I look out and I say sincerely that I hope you'll join me in that acknowledgement and endeavor. How can we fight anti-Semitism without fighting other forms of supremacy and senseless hatred? When Jacob left the land, he said, Jacob made a vow saying, if God remains with me, if he protects me on this journey, that I am making, he gives me bread to eat and clothing to wear. If I return safely to my father's house, then the eternal one shall be my God. And he set up a pillar in that place, and he said, this stone which I set up as a pillar shall be God's abode, and all that you have given me I will set aside a tithe for you. It is incumbent on us As we live in this golden land, as we celebrate moments of national celebration, it is important for us to search out ways and words and actions that return the eyes and the Seminoles, the natives who lived in this place before us, and return to the land of their ancestors. As I say, Amen.